Hey everyone, this is Rangadad, not financial advice, just this is my daily market scan and how I'm looking at the market. Um, yeah, yesterday's title was short sellers, they're coming for you, and they certainly did in a big way. Now, looks like they're taking out some of the people that were going high leverage longs on the breakout, which is actually kind of what I expected more in here, but yeah, looks like an interesting candle forming. Obviously, still about 4.5 hours to go, so I do actually expect this to probably pop back up a bit. If we close this candle below that value area high, then that could look a little different. Um, there's a lot of stuff pointing towards continuation to the upside here. I'm not expecting the pullback that we were talking about to happen anymore. We were kind of looking at this 50 EMA coming in here on the daily, but at this stage, it's still looking really strong. I think this is just an intraday pullback. Gonna have a quick look at. So, in general, the stock market's had another relatively green day. It's just kind of eking higher slightly. XLY is still high, so consumer discretionary is still moving up. Nothing huge at the highs yet, so you got to kind of expect that this trend is going to continue at least for another day or two, and maybe longer. XBI had a massive. It was one of the bigger trades, so tend to have a look at the today. Just see if there's anything that's of interest to me that's in these top fives. Obviously, Coinel, the 2x Coinbase fund, is right up there. Right, we'll have a look at that. And yeah, IBIT and XLF are both up there. So actually, I'll click on XLF. So yeah, XLF getting a big one. So financial sector, it's had some big ones over the last couple of days. Have a quick look over the week. Didn't really show up versus the other five largest on the weekly. Question is this a sell or is it a buy? We don't know. It's happening after a fair bit of consolidation, so chances are I think this is actually a buy. Financial sector has been underperforming, as has semiconductors, and I remember the ticker now, so I'll cover that today. But both of them have had, well, semiconductors has had a pretty big bid, like second largest in its history or largest in the last 2 years or something, coming off the lows. So it's suggesting there's a bit of rotation happening into a couple of these sectors. So XBI, biotech, that looks like a buy at the moment. I'd be surprised if it's a sell. Could be wrong, but doesn't look like a sell. So Riot Blockchain, they've had a couple of big trades, ninth largest in history. Interesting level. I mean, that looks like a take profit, and the fact that there's big trades in here again and it's pulled back from there, that actually looks like a take profit. Could be wrong, but yeah, that's interesting. gonna keep an eye on that. Granite shares 2x on Coinbase. So I think I actually pointed this out to the Discord. Maybe pointed something out. Oh yeah, this one here. So this one came in right after the pump in Bitcoin. Is that right? Am I looking at? Yeah. This came in just after my my live yesterday, and it was an interesting one. I actually think there may be some profit taking, but I think there's both going on here. These look like people loading up on the way back down. I am expecting more upside in Bitcoin in the short term, but that's kind of what this looks like. Just people buying the dip on the breakout. But yeah, that I would expect is some profit taking too. So it's kind of, yeah, there's mixed signals. It's an interesting time in the markets. Have a quick look at liquidation levels. So massive level in here. It was destined to come back to that, but it's kind of continued from there. And it could just be that they're trying to get some more shorts in the system. As you can see here, there is short liquidations on Binance, but not anything massive. So I think they're trying to move price back down, pick up some of these longs, and then they might head back up. Ooh, yeah. I don't think this is where it's going to stop. There's probably going to be a bit more resistance around the 108, 1085 level, just because there is a trend line in there that I'll show you in a minute. But at the moment, this seems like a bit of a pullback. Just like hopefully we can just retest that breakout. That's all I'm really looking for. The breakout of the 90K level. Sorry, 99K, somewhere in here. It might even stop at 100K, but you know, this is a pretty good indicator that we were headed back down. You know, there's a lot of red in this chart as we were hitting the highs, but open interest has only just started dropping a little bit, which is, yeah. Cumulative volume delta, not getting any major reads off that either. So I'll skip that for now. Nothing huge in there. Just zoom out a little bit, see what it looks like. Yeah, there's some stuff in here. I'd be surprised if it doesn't come down a bit further, just a little bit at least. See what happens if it bounces off this previous high or not. Somewhere, yeah. Low 99K wouldn't be the end of the world. All right, so back to this. Where would low 99K be? Yeah, basically it'd be retesting the top of this this breakout, but also the value area high. So that's certainly something to keep an eye out for. Bounces off that 99K level would be expected. Whether it does it within this candle or not will be quite interesting. I'll go to a different chart in a minute and go down to the hourly. But yeah, in general, I would expect this to move back up in the next 4 hours and close a much nicer looking candle. Let's just go and we'll go to the weekly. I need to do it on this. That's annoying. And I got lots of shit on there. All right, so just whoops. And at this, we'll go to pick up high there. And we'll come up through basically the highs of these candles. Depends if you want to pick up both or not. So you could potentially extend that a little bit higher. Because this realistically, that was the technical peak of this bull market. But yeah, it's going to be much of a muchness, I think. Yeah, basically somewhere in that region, potentially up into 114. Could see some resistance and more just a little pullback, I would think. But this weekly is looking pretty strong. Still 3 days to go. We have recovered most of that wick there to the downside as well. So there's no real concerns about this yet. Momentum's still to the upside on the weekly. BBWP is still to the upside. You know, no huge concerns there, and that would seem like a pretty good target over the next 2 weeks. Somewhere up, potentially even wicking up into 115 or even 120. But I'd say once we get up into that sort of region, there might be a little bit of a pullback. And that could just be a pullback in time. Not like it's weird. I'm still thinking that the general stock market looks a little overbought, but timing that is tricky. So it's more taking profit at key levels and just buying back in on dips and sort of DCAing back in as it comes down, having some key levels around that is going to be the play over the next 3 months, I'd say. Crown did an interesting video talking about when the peak might be in this market, and there was a lot of confluence around February, March, potentially even January. But at the moment, it looks like I tend to agree that we probably get a decent pullback at that stage. I don't know that it will be the peak yet. Once that happens, we could get another run up later, 2025. But I think there will be that typical sort of 20 to 30% correction that Bitcoin has after the start of a new breakout, new all-time high. Bull run. So yeah, daily. Interesting. Let's have a look at this chart. I'll just get rid of rainbow wave. Go back to CPR. Haven't really hit any key targets on the CPR. Just put the trader's reality on there as well. Funnily enough, like Tino, the trader's reality guy, basically says movement keeps going until the 5 and the 13 cross, and they haven't crossed yet. Even closures below the 13 can suggest there might be some issues starting, but fact that these haven't crossed yet, there's still more upside potential. Interesting, we've just dropped a couple $100 again. Yeah, just as I've been talking. So probably a little bounce here, but there's still more downside on this potentially. I'd expect this to come down to that -1 level. So yeah, and it looks like that wants to actually break the 200 on the 15-minute. It's an interesting move. Bring it right back down into here. Getting some support. It is outside those Bollingers, so you can get some continuation to the downside once it breaks that. But the Bollinger Bands are actually contracting as well, so might not be as volatile as you might think. So it looks like we're coming sort of to the end of this move, but just the fact there's a bit more downside left in this could just trudge sideways and down. Just pick up a little bit more liquidity. 97 is still an interesting target for me. Got that'd be the 1 hour 200. I think I said the other day, the 1 hour 200, it's rare that we actually break that and we don't retest it before going on another run. So this here was very impulsive. It was needed to clear out all the sellers above 100K, and it's done that. There are still some sellers coming into the charts, obviously, but that sort of move to get rid of these guys in here, that was a massive volume move that had to happen. And it was led by the whales. There was lots of whales piling in there, like the ones with millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin in their wallets. And now that that's broken, I think it'll be a little bit more, I guess, technical, and we'll get more sense out of this market over the next couple of days. But yeah, bringing it back into key levels, retesting 200 EMA and stuff would kind of make sense before going on another run. It is drawing more and more shorts into the market, which is what we like to see if we want to go up. Key level here around 110. Might find some resistance there. There's actually not a lot around there, so 115's got some as well. So it looks like round numbers are going to be probably areas for pullbacks. Looks like there's a decent amount coming into the 120K level as well. 130. And yeah, kind of expected a bit around 150. So, and that's been there for a while. These are sort of key levels that you want to look out for, the ones where people have had sell orders in for a long time and big orders. So 110, 120, 150. I'd expect all of them to be taken in this bull run. Some optimistic people, but as we said the other day, that is actually a potential target this cycle. If we do go on a massive tear like previous cycles, that is doable. It's actually not as big a pump as what the last cycle was, so definitely a possibility there. Yeah, it's just a matter of where to load up. I'm actually still working on this for those that are interested. I've actually put a little strategy around it just to test things out and just to see where the best sort of settings are. Obviously, current settings aren't going well, but this is purely just using correlation coefficient and the ATO. So I'm going to put a couple other things across it over the top. Also, for those that are waiting for this one to come out, after adding a couple of extra if statements in there for different order options, it no longer wants to actually open any trades, even though it's actually triggering the orders in the script, but they're not showing up in TradingView for whatever reason. TradingView is just a shit program, fine script. So yeah, literally I can see stop losses and stuff like that come into the charts, which only show if there's an open order, but TradingView is not showing it properly. This is obviously for the ATO. So I'm going to have a break from this for a little bit until I can figure out a way to just make that script a bit smaller. It obviously just can't handle the amount of if statements in there, I'd say. Anyway, yeah, look, vector candle forming here as well. So interesting. I think that is looking like a target at the moment. Sorry, what I was going to do too. So on the daily, just looking at the RSI, we did have some bearish divergence in here, which led to a bit of a pullback, but we never really had any bullish divergence, which kind of surprised me. Probably a hidden divergence in here, phantom drive there, but it wasn't super obvious. But if we come down to the 1 hour, the 1 hour has been pretty good. And during bull runs where you get massive moves, the 1 hour can be a good one to trade on. Actually, looks like this is probably a pretty good spot for a bounce on the 1 hour. Last week's high, yesterday's high, daily opens coming close, so might get a little bounce here. As I said, though, I'd love it to come back into the psychological high, which is sitting right around that 97k and the 200 EMA on the hourly. Anyway, so this did actually put in a bearish divergence on the hourly. It broke through this trend line. I think poorly drawn trend line there. Yeah, it did. So what? Okay. All right. Must have done that on the daily or something. Yeah. So that's actually there's quite a bit of divergence on this one on the hourly, the downside. We have left an hourly vector candle up here, though, that hasn't really been recovered, so I am expecting it to go back up there. This is just a retrace, potentially a fake out. Like, there is a chance that we continue down lower and hit those targets, like particularly this top pivot here at 92. But I guess it's kind of going to depend where today's candle closes. If we do close back within that value area high, then seems like there's a pretty high chance that we will come back down into that. The 1 hour could keep going for a little bit as well, which again could bring us down into that psychological high. Recover these vector candles. There is an M2 level there as well. Yeah, it's looking like a pretty good recovery, but these sort of tops on Bitcoin as well can actually lead to like continuation to the downside. We're looking for something. We want to see something more like this. Even there is a little trend line potential there. which again brings in that sort of psychological high if we can trudge sideways a little bit. And typically, when you break the 50 EMA, you will get a bit of a retrace into it. What you want to see if you're a bull and you're buying at this area, you want to see the next hourly candle sort of close above that, and then chances are you could actually continue back up to the upside. So we've really only got a couple of hours to go on this. You really want to see that recover pretty quick. Just having a look. It actually would be hidden bullish divergence if it came down a little bit more and made a higher low. That would actually be a pretty good sign for move to the upside, or at least finding some support relatively soon. Yeah, it's been a pretty violent pullback. We'll just have to, it's kind of a suck it and see. Probably not a bad level to buy at, 99k. The people that were buying longs at 104k when it got up there probably wish they had have bought at 99k. So just keep that in mind when you see pullbacks like this. As you can see, we sort of got a similar little pattern here. Probably not as violent a move up, but came down pretty hard and trudged sideways for a little bit. That was on the first push to try and break the all-time high. Well, first decent push, but pull back into that pivot and then went. So yeah, this is, it's kind of a coin flip at the moment. We really need to see that next hourly close to see what's happening. If the hourly closes lower than this after a wick into the 50 EMA, then I would kind of just expect it to at least come back into this region here. Yeah, I'm not expecting any sort of major crash or anything like that. It's just market needs to take a rest and take out some of these longs before we go up. That was a massive push. Like the volume required to get to 100, well, through 100k was pretty significant. All right, I'll have a quick look at. That's a wicked looking candle at the moment. If we close with a hanging man like that on a vector inside the value area high, then yeah, look, it could mean a bigger pullback. But it is a vector candle. They do get recovered reasonably quickly normally. So I just don't think we're going to leave a vector up here before we pull back further. So I'm still kind of bullish. I think this is a pretty good buying zone. Somewhere around here. So NASDAQ's finally started to pull back a little bit. Doesn't really bode too well for next week, but momentum still doesn't even look like crossing yet to the downside. Across the board, this just looks like a little pullback at the moment. I would have liked to have seen a bigger pullback and a cross of this, but I think tomorrow's job numbers are probably going to be what tells us what's going on. The equal weight NASDAQ has actually closed a gap. Obviously, there's still plenty of gaps below, but it's kind of looking more like it's about to roll over. than the normal NASDAQ. So is this a bellwether for what's about to happen? Probably. I'm still leaning towards general pullback next week, which Bitcoin might ignore that. Hope it does. It seems like it wants to, but as I said, this daily close and the next couple of hours even are going to probably give us an indication as to what it wants to do there. SPY, little pullback as well. There's still room to move on these though. Equal weight, as we said, has already started pulling back off this level. And it looks like it wants more. And so if we are pulling back more on the equal weight, that will likely drag the regular SPY back as well. So not necessarily as much. Let's have a look at some potentially back into this trend line here, which is roughly where the 50 EMA is as well. That would make a fair bit of sense. You're probably going to have this as support to a degree as well. But interestingly, the trend line that goes through here, where is it? There's a pretty decent trend line up there that's pretty close to. So it hasn't been perfect at stopping this, but it's actually been better on the RSP. In terms of a trend line, the RSP is kind of telling you overall where the direction's headed. So it is suggesting downside on S&P 500, probably just the next week. IWM is still pulling back. Again, IWM's probably going to outperform S&P 500 in December, and it's good that it's pulling back now. Finding support somewhere around the 233 level or thereabouts next week should be a pretty good buy-in for IWM. XLR is pulling back. XLY, XLP is still going up. Let's look at the equal weight. So the equal weight isn't. I think the equal weight's the one to really pay attention to at the moment, just because the rotation in the markets, like if Tesla gets a bid or Amazon gets a bid, then the XLY, XLP is heavily weighted towards a couple of those stocks. So yeah, this is probably, I mean, it's still trending up, but it looks right for a pullback. Yeah, KRE looks like it wants to bounce here, which is interesting. I think it'll get more pullback though. So that could have been a sell that we saw. Just going to add in SMH here. So SMH did have quite a large trade on it. I think it was in this candle here. And it has pushed up since then, but it's actually really interesting. The fact that we pulled back today could just be a retest of this 50. BBWP is low, so whichever way BBWP ticks up, if it ticks up tomorrow and we've still got momentum to the upside, then I would actually expect semiconductors to go on a decent run. If this BBWP ticks up and stochastic momentum actually comes to the downside and we get a candle that comes below here, then that could actually suggest a decent break to the downside. We haven't got any particular vectors that haven't been recovered. There is a gap up here, up to 273, but there's this vector here is kind of sticking out like a sore thumb at the moment. This seems like it might be a distribution level. Just remember that smart money hasn't started coming back into the market yet. So watching that keenly, that actually looks like it, to me, may have actually been a sell or a poorly timed buy. Tomorrow is going to be an interesting day with the news coming out. Home builders are still suggesting further downside. So again, this is not looking good. It's not looking like a W pattern's going to form here. As I said yesterday, it's sort of already run that W pattern anyway. But we don't want it to really form. What it looks like it might be forming at the moment is more of an M pattern. So this comes down, hits the 200, comes back up, bit of a dead cat bounce into this level, and then moves away again. That's probably going to be a signal that recession's not far away. Yeah, we had a similar thing here, M pattern, but it failed. That sort of retrace into that level did not eventuate as a bounce to the downside. That's kind of what we need to be on the lookout for here. So DJ gold, still flat. So this isn't really signaling any major issues for the stock market at the moment. Still haven't managed to get my DJT. Invalid signal. Symbol. Fuck you. All right. Whatever. I'll fix that next time. I was supposed to do it today, but anyway. But yeah, both DJT, so transport index and industrials are still pulling back as well. If there is more downside to go on the market, this is actually a pretty big volume sell-off too. If there is more downside on the market tomorrow, then these things could come back quite a bit. And that might actually suggest that we've got some bigger underlying issues in the market, which we know are there. It's just they're not really pricing them into the markets yet. Yeah. VIX looks like it's basing at the moment. Again, this typically doesn't go for that long without at least a little jump. Potentially something like this over a week could lead to just a little bit of a pullback. Skew was still high yesterday, so that was kind of suggesting that we were going a little bit higher, and I guess we did to a degree, but have started to pull back. So it'd be interesting to see where that comes in today. If we see a skew crush, then that kind of aligns with the theory that next week might be a pullback week on the stock market, which we've really got to be wary of for Bitcoin as well. So DAX is definitely broken out. Like that's confirmed break. Still might pull back a little bit, retest this level, but at the moment could go quite a bit higher as well. Let's just see. Well, it's probably coming into a good level here, just picking up the tops there, which I'm assuming will probably pull back into an area in here as well. Yeah. Look, it's probably topped out at the moment, so pullbacks are likely, but Chinese market, Hang Seng, it's still struggling. it still seems like this would be a better buying opportunity. Rejection off the 50 EMA there is not great. Momentum's still to the upside, but it needs to really put in a good day today. If it puts in a down day and BBWP expands from here, then it's probably coming down quite a bit more, actually, potentially into that 18,300 sort of level, which again would kind of align with the rest of the market pulling back. UK 100, not much going on there. Japanese market looks like it might be in a big distribution phase as well, but it's struggling. Treasuries is getting a bid, probably after Powell suggesting that there's going to be a 0.25 cut later in December. At December 18th, 19th is going to be really interesting because that's when the Japanese central bank's giving their interest rate decision as well. So, yeah, high yield has recovered that vector, but it hasn't sort of pushed much higher. I think, oops, wasn't really what I was trying to do, but high yield here, if it breaks this trend line, I would expect pretty decent downside on high yield, which is interesting. Again, that would kind of suggest the stock market going down a bit further. Not making a higher high on this run up too is kind of concerning for me. So it's a bit of divergence really between this blue line here, which is the S&P 500, making higher highs, and bonds are making lower highs, suggesting we're getting close to tops in the market, which I don't know, I'm expecting more of a blow off top, but we don't have to get that, I guess. Bravos Research actually did an interesting video today that I recommend checking out as well. All right, getting close here. So these SPDR bonds are going all right. This bond indicator is not suggesting anything major yet either. Again, I'd probably just use this as the trend line to break. If we break down from there, then probably looking at a bigger pullback on the market. In fact, these are still highs. See 10 years going up a little bit. Interesting. The bond market, yeah, could just be a little retest of these EMAs. Momentum's still in the bearish control zone, and BBWP is still to the upside. So I do expect this to pull back a little bit more, especially if they're going to reduce rates. But copper's still fighting for more upside, but rejecting off that 200 EMA still. It's looking like copper is probably going to pull back more. It's just a weird level for it to happen if it happens around here. And it would be bad coming off such a low BBWP as well. You're potentially looking at $3.80 for copper, which, man, there's going to be some freaking out happening if that happens, I think. Gold's finally had a little bit more of a pullback. Again, I do expect this to come back into this level a little bit more. It could find support there at the 2600 level, but I kind of want to see it pull back more. Silver still hasn't broken its level. It is performing better than gold, but they're both down at the moment. US oil's still pulling back. Yeah, man. If we're breaking all these levels to the downside on a pullback, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the market, because it feels more like we're getting close to sort of a recession call earlier next year rather than towards the end of next year. Um, 60's pulling back. Might find some support here. Momentum's to the downside though, and BBWP's just ticked back above the signal line. So I do expect this to actually pull back a little bit more, probably into that 104 level, which again could actually mean upside for the market. So there's still a lot of mixed signals here. Japanese yen, yeah, probably wants to go on another run. I think people are actually expecting Japanese interest rate hike. Well, they're starting to price it in anyway, which wouldn't bode particularly well for US stocks, which could mean a red end of December. We could still get a little bit of movement to the upside in stocks over the next little while, just sort of bucking the trend and keep going. But then if we do that, it feels like the pullback's going to be a bit bigger than what people probably expect. Percentage of stocks above 50-day moving average yesterday held sort of flat, but starting to trend down by the look of it. Mag 7 still going up. And again, Tesla's getting a bid. It's broken through a pretty key wall there. I think, yeah, 413 is pretty good target. And some of these things breaking out, it's just feels like we've actually got more upside on certain sectors of the market. Nvidia didn't pull back as much as semiconductors in general, so that's interesting as well. It's a real shit fight, this market. Interesting that ARK-K is still pushing higher. Again, IWM could be a decent performer. The smaller cap stocks seem to have been getting a bit of a bid. Interesting break on Apple. Retested that break level as well. It's not a super strong level, I wouldn't say, but like this could actually be drawn up there as well if you really wanted to. So no, I wouldn't call that a strong read for more upside, but especially when stochastic momentum looks really high and looks like it wants to pull back a little bit. Amazon, yeah, decent. A lot of these are hitting decent levels, pulling back. That was a good breakout there. Let's see what this trend does. Meta might have a little bit more in it as well. Not too worried about these. Airbnb's pulling back again. Airbnb's struggled to really break out of this 200 EMA. There's a lot of caution in the market. A lot of nervousness. ASX 200 started to roll over. I do expect that to pull back a bit. BBWP is getting pretty low here, so if that spikes as we come down, then a decent pullback is on the cards there as well. Total crypto market cap's pulled back a bit today so far. So people taking some money out of the charts. they're going back into stable, so to a degree. Kind of want to break this level and close below this level for it to be confirmed bull run, I think. At the moment, this actually is suggesting we do have a bit of a further pullback. ETH BTC, these guys are still selling like closing positions like mad. This is still weird to me that most of these guys are not in profit. Just cannot be in profit. Seems nuts. That's a concern. The big players are getting out at a loss. It just makes me feel like the big players know something that we don't, and they're closing all of these positions, not really opening many new ones. A little bit of an uptick in BTC USD longs today. That's good. We want to see some accumulation on the way down. So this is suggesting that we may come back a little bit more on Bitcoin. Also, advanced decline line is pulling back. Retested that EMA and is pulling back further. So that's, again, suggestive of a pullback on the markets, on the US market. Shorts are being closed out though. There's no real increase in shorts, so that's not neither here nor there really. It just means they're taking profit quickly. ETH BTC is still holding this upward trend, but momentum has turned to the downside. So ETH may get more of a pullback, which is a little concerning because it hasn't really gone on the run that you would expect after breaking out, reconfirming this level, to just have one, which is actually a stopping volume candle, really. Just have one candle to the upside and then a retrace. It's a little concerning for ETH, but again, if it's just a pullback over the week, pullback into this point of control, then a move up, not too bad. Start breaking down from these levels, I would actually be concerned about the overall markets. The CME had a big spike and a big drop. It hit 105. It has been trading at a premium to the other exchanges, but this is a nasty looking candle at the moment. Need to see a decent turnaround on this candle. Otherwise, what I would kind of be expecting if we do get a move up would be sort of recovery of this, the vectors in here, and then potentially another move down. I'd actually, if we do close something like this, I would actually prefer it to make that pullback and leave that vector up there, because you know it's going to come back to that vector before we actually do a major move to the downside. So hoping at the moment this is just a bit of a fake out. But the fact that CME is pulling back so hard as well on big volume, yeah, suggests that could be a fake out. Sol is struggling as well. I mentioned to someone the other day that they were complaining that Sol wasn't getting a pump. I suggested that maybe Sol's actually showing you what Bitcoin is actually going to do. Sol kind of led the way on Bitcoin previously, so just keep that in mind. It is ticking to the upside on momentum, but BBWP is still low, so you kind of want BBWP to be expanding at the same time as you got upside momentum. So yeah, Sol might have had its pullback already. Just have to wait and see. I would expect it to get dragged down a little bit if Bitcoin does come down further. A lot of the alts are kind of, some of them are still getting a bid. There's still a little bit of rotation. Recovery of that vector candle there on Mudang. Might go for a bounce here, actually. Anyway, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens over the next, well, today's close, next couple of hours. Interesting to see. We are getting close to the bottom of this move by the look of this. Again, bounce off that 97 would be a pretty good buying opportunity, I think. But going to have to probably take profits when it hits the 200 EMA, or potentially when it comes into the 50 EMA. If that comes down in here, this vector candle here is probably going to be your first profit take level around that 99.5. So just be careful. If you're building longer term positions, then that's not a bad DCA level, 97, if we get there, which looks likely at this stage. But if we close around this level on the daily, then I would expect further downside as well. Which is going to be very interesting to see what happens here. As I said yesterday, we did leave some pretty decent vectors down here as well. Pretty good volume. Be interesting, that sort of level there, if there's a trend line there, which there is, and I think this trend line actually goes back quite a way, sort of into this first pause level. But there are ones below it as well, so caution is required. But I think at this stage, it looks like you're getting a discount on Bitcoin compared to what it's probably going to do in the next couple of months.